Chapter 10, Step 7, Taking Massive Action. You don't have to be great to start. You just have to start to become great. Joe Sabah. Results or reasons. People who live their best life are people who take responsibility for how their life turns out, rather than blame everyone else. There's a term in neurolinguistic programming called cause and effect. Cause and effect is about the difference between having the results you want in life and having reasons why you don't. It is not about being at fault or assigning blame. It's simply about taking responsibility for the way you respond. The definition of responsibility is the state or fact of having a duty to deal with something or of having control over someone. That someone, in this context, is you. In step 2, you learned about E plus R equals O. Event plus reaction equals outcome. You cannot control the event which is happening. The only thing you can control is your response to the event, the meaning you give it, which in turn will decide the outcome. People who are at cause take responsibility. They take control. They are proactive instead of reactive. They take ownership, and they know they have a choice to respond in a way that will yield them the results they desire in their life. And by the way, the definition of a choice is an act of selecting or making a decision when faced with two or more possibilities. On the contrary, people who are at effect are people who constantly blame. They assign responsibility for something bad to someone or something. They play the victim card. They're reactive. They make excuses. They say things like, "This always happens to me," or "I just have bad luck," or "I had no choice." See, the problem with blaming is that when you blame, you give up power and control. When you blame, you are essentially saying to yourself, "I'm powerless. It's not up to me. How my life turns out is up to someone or something else." And these statements couldn't be further from the truth. Reading my story, you can see that I had plenty of opportunities to blame others, and for a while, I did. Attempting suicide is the perfect example of that. In that moment in time, I felt totally powerless. I felt my life was out of control and out of my hands. In that moment, death seemed to be the only thing that would stop the suffering. In that moment, I felt helpless and hopeless. After the attempt failed, I continued to blame. I blamed my mom, my dad, my wife, school, and the justice system. Hell, I even blamed the weather at one point. It was everything outside of me that was to blame. It was those outside forces that were the reasons why I was so depressed and had all those dark thoughts, which led to dark emotions, which then turned into dark actions that created those dark results. It wasn't until sitting in my probation officer's office I made the decision that this was not what I was going to be remembered for. It was that moment I got to cause, and I took ownership of my life and began the process that led to where I am today. 95% of the world is walking around with reasons. Today, right now, I challenge you to make a decision to get rid of all the reasons and take control. Get out of the passenger seat and take the wheel. Self-care. When it comes to taking massive action, self-care is vital. Many know the term and yet never practice it. A pastor once said to me, "Steve, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing of a thing. Wisdom is knowing what to do with it. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in fruit salad." So what is self-care? In the dictionary, self-care is defined as a practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health, the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during times of stress. In other words, self-care is to deliberately do what you need to do to take care of your mental, emotional, and physical health. What self-care is not is things like drinking or doing drugs to alter your emotional state. Yes, I said it. Happy hour is not considered self-care. Self-care is also not selfish. It is stated by the medical community that 85% or more of chronic illness is due to negative emotions, i.e. stress. Stress is directly linked to diabetes, cancer, hypertension, stroke, heart attack, aging, anxiety, depression, headaches, migraines, weight gain, hair loss, acne, and more. What's the number one limiting belief that most people have for not practicing self-care? I don't have time. Just like I mentioned in the previous chapter, there are 168 hours in a week. And in that 168 hours, you can take care of yourself as well as everyone else as long as you schedule it. So to say that you don't have 30 minutes to an hour a day to sleep or take in proper nutrition or exercise or meditate or use preventative health care is simply not true. Self-care is about properly managing your energy. There are people you associate with, places you go, unproductive habits to habitually perform, and unhealthy foods that you eat that drain you of energy. The opposite is true too. There are also people, places, habits, and foods that give you energy. Taking massive, long, sustaining action requires eliminating all the things that drain you and replacing them with all the things that fuel you. Self-care is about putting yourself first. When traveling on an airplane right before takeoff, the flight attendant gives us safety instructions. Their instructions are, in case of an emergency, put your oxygen mask on first, not your loved one. Why? The answer is simple. If you pass out while trying to help your loved one out first, you both will die. It is the same when it comes to self-care. If you drive yourself into the ground because you have this belief, a feeling of absolute certainty, that everyone else's needs come before yours, eventually your body will give out, and instead of you taking care of them, they will be trying to take care of you. Now what? I came to this realization while having a conversation with my friend Sonny. We were sitting one day in one of his many businesses. I think I was 27 years old at the time, and he was only 23. He was 4 years younger than I, and at the same time was on the verge of surpassing his first $1 million. As for me at the time, I was broke with a big heart. I would happily give my last to everyone else that I felt needed it, because to me it was the right thing to do. If they needed it, whether it was time or money, and I had it, I would give it. One day I was sitting next to him trying to come up with some money to stop my car from getting repossessed. He leans over and he says to me, "You want to know why you'll never get ahead in life?" I've replied, "Why?" He says, "Because you are always giving to your own detriment. You need to become more selfish. That's how you help more people." I was a bit taken back and confused by his comment at first, but then he began to explain. He said, "Let's say over the next 5 years, you and I both decide that we're going to help people. But we did it two different ways. You continue what you are doing and give your last to everyone over the next 5 years. Your last dollar, your last bit of time, your last bit of everything. Help as many people as you possibly can. And me, over the next 5 years, I'm not going to give away anything. I'm not giving away my money, and I'm not giving away my time. For the next 5 years, I'm going to be completely selfish and save $1 million. Now you tell me who can help more people, me or you." He continues, "With my now saved $1 million, I can take a portion of that and feed hundreds of families, do toy drives for kids, get loans to buy housing, and rent to low-income families, and still have $500,000 left over for me and my family. At first, it'll seem like I'm super selfish, and that's what most will call me. But what I'm doing is taking care of me first. I'm making sure that my family and I have what we need so that when I do give, I can give without hurting myself or my family. Sure, I could have gone back and forth with him over the numbers, but I didn't because I got the point. And I hope you did too. By taking care of yourself first, you put yourself in a position to take care of those you love without killing yourself. Meaning, sometimes you have to become selfish for a short period of time so that you can become selfless for a lifetime. Success and happiness. Success and happiness are two different things. In the dictionary, success is defined as an accomplishment of an aim or purpose. If a young girl says that she wants to be a teacher when she grows up, and then grows up to become that teacher but struggles financially to pay her bills, is she successful? Answer, yes. Why? Simply because that's what she's always wanted to do. Again, success in the dictionary is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. It says nothing about how much money you make. It is really important that you learn to define what success means to you. Do not let society determine what success is for you, because you will always come up short. No one else's definition matters. You have to define what success means to you and live up to that. My friends, that is what equals happiness, which in the dictionary is defined as a feeling or showing pleasure or contentment. You can choose to be happy right where you are, even if it's not the ideal situation. Happiness is what you make it. If the young girl who grew up to be a teacher is struggling financially, but living the life that she grew up dreaming of, knowing teachers don't get paid what they deserve, which is a crying shame, by definition, she is successful. So understand that success is whatever it means to you, not where you live, what you drive, or the price tag on your clothes. Shout out to the Zac Brown Band for that last line. I love their music. Slight edge. This principle is well known in the personal development community. It was Jeff Olson, the author of the book Slight Edge, and Darren Hardy, the author of the book The Compound Effect, who are the ones that made this concept popular. The slight edge principle states, what's easy to do is also easy not to do. It is easy to read 10 pages of a good book a day. It is also easy not to. It is easy to walk around the block for your own health. It is also easy not to. It is easy to do everything we've talked about in this book. It is also easy not to. The simple difference between success and failure is whether or not you are willing to do the little, easy, simple things every day that seem not to matter as much in the moment, like reading 10 pages of a good book a day. In the book Slight Edge, Jeff Olson points out, if you took two people and gave them both books on leadership, person A reads 10 pages a day while person B skips the reading. In the first day, does it really help or harm either of them in the moment? No, not really. But over a 12-month period, will it make a difference? Yes. If person A continues to read those 10 pages over 12 months, that would equal 3,565 pages, close to 15 books read on leadership. Meanwhile, person B continues to skip the reading to do the same old, same old. Will we see a difference between the two of them over 12 months? Yes. The slight edge principle is about committing to simple daily disciplines or daily errors in judgment. Every decision you make today, tomorrow, in the next 5 minutes, and in the last 5 minutes, all compound together to create the life that you are experiencing today. Your life right now is the sum total of all the little decisions that you have made up until this point. And 5 years from this moment, Your life will be the sum total of all the little decisions you make every second of every day. So it is not one big significant event that swayed your life in one direction or another. It is all the little moments and decisions that led up to that big significant event that did. My mentors would always say, successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. That is the difference between the haves and the have-nots. Here's a very simple formula for success. Ready? Take a look at the masses, the 95% who blame and complain about life and have all the reasons in the world about why their life isn't the way they want it to be. Take very careful note of everything that they are doing and do the exact opposite. Getting over your fear of failure. I saved this for last because this is the topic that stops most people dead in their tracks. The fear of failing. Well, what if I told you that the concept of failure, as you know it, isn't real? Huh? What do you mean, Steve? Allow me to explain. When you were a baby, the fear of failure was really non-existent. Think about it. You stumbled around, fell a bunch of times, you got hurt on a few occasions until you learned to walk. Then you started climbing over everything and jumping off like you were Evel Knievel. As a toddler, you were essentially fearless. But when did it all change? For most of us, it all changed in grade school. That is when a negative emotion became linked to failing. If you got an A, you were praised. But if you got an F, well, you know what comes with that, right? Parents scolding you, other kids making fun of you, and for some, being put on punishment. In my family, getting your ass whooped. We all have experienced that humiliation of a bad grade and all that follows. Well, at that point, your unconscious mind links massive pain to failing by essentially saying failing equals punishment and humiliation. Therefore, I will avoid failing at all costs in order to never feel these emotions again. So see, failure as you know it is just a myth. Let me share with you what failure actually means. Failure in the dictionary says the omission of a required action or the omission of an expected or required action. And if you look up the word omission, it means exclusion or leaving out, deletion, cut, or elimination. Basically, failure is just leaving out an expected or required action, meaning it is not a destination. It is not an identity. It is simply the omission, the leaving out of an expected or required action. In other words, what you tried didn't work because you left something or some things out that you were supposed to do, and if you did them, you would succeed. Let's say I was baking a cake and my cake didn't rise in the oven. That means I failed. I left out something. I omitted a required action. That doesn't mean I am a horrible baker and that I should never bake again. It simply means I left out a key ingredient, and when I add said ingredient, my cake will rise. See? Not an identity. Failing doesn't mean anything about me, and it means nothing about you either. Fear is defined as an unpleasant emotion caused by a belief that someone or something is dangerous and likely to cause pain or threat. The definition of belief is a feeling of absolute certainty, as we discussed before in step 2. The definition of feeling is a strong emotion. So, if you put it all together, the fear of failure is simply this: you having a belief or a strong emotion that deep down you don't have what it takes and that you will not do what is required to achieve the goal, and not achieving the goal will cause you to feel some sort of negative feeling you want to avoid. A strong emotion of absolute certainty that you will feel stupid, rejected, humiliated, or lose people if you don't succeed. Failure, as you know it, is a lie. The truth is that failure is a good thing. It is your friend. Failure is how you learn. You learn how to do things right by first doing them wrong. I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said, if you want to succeed faster, double your rate of failure. When Thomas Edison nearly blew himself and his friends up while conducting experiments trying to make the light we all enjoy today, his friend looked at him and said, "That's the 900th time you failed. When are you going to give up?" Edison looked at him and said, "I did not fail. I just found 900 ways not to make a light bulb. But I did just learn how to make a small explosion." Remember, you control the meaning, always. You're avoiding something you have complete control over. Nothing in life has meaning except the meaning you choose to give it. You get to decide whatever meaning you want to give failure. All I'm saying is the concept of failure that cripples most people in this world is not real. So give it a different meaning, one that gives you a different feeling, a feeling that you won't want to avoid, a feeling that inspires you.